Now today's video is going to be much more about the function and less about the form, so it's going to be a little bit crude and dirty, and I'm just going to get right into it and talk to you about a concept. So my concept is that I'm kind of sick of my same old knife storage, and so I'm working on a project here, and yes, please excuse my workshop. Yes, my future workshop. But in preparation to take on this project, I want to get my knives out of my toolbox and free up space. So basically for the longest time now, I've had all my blades stored in this toolbox, and I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, I got to get them out of here because I want to start this workshop project. I want to clean this place up, build my walls. Now this is coming after a pretty significant project, building my office and slash studio, and also my family room. So I'm getting close here. I'm on the final steps, final stages, and getting myself to the point where hopefully I can get into the workshop. So real briefly, just covering the fact that I've established kind of my gear wall now and got this roughed in, and I got some stuff kind of going on the wall where I want it. And I had these two toolboxes right here, and I'm like, I could probably do something pretty damn cool. So anyway, I decided I had an option to go under here with a toolbox with drawers that pulled out, and to do that I was going to have to do something with knife blocks like this and get them in there, and I came up all of a sudden with a concept to utilize this wall space. So I've gotten these toolboxes out of the way. I have a couple of drawings here to show you. Most importantly, I have a vodka drink ready to go, and I'm going to fabricate myself a really cool and unique, hopefully first of its kind, knife block. So real quick here, we're looking at a side profile of what I'm going to build, and it's going to be a little bit confusing to you right away, but basically what I have here is 1/2-inch sheets of MDF ripped to size. So here I have a 16-inch, 13-inch, 10-inch, 7-inch, and 4-inch piece. Basically two pieces that are stepping down in each one of the sizes, working their way down. Now I laid out a full 4x8 sheet of MDF into my cuts. I ripped off a 4-inch piece right away, had 44 inches left, and then cut them into the 16, 13, 10, 7, and there I have, that's 2 and 2, but basically a final 4-inch piece. And what you see here is the cuts that I came up with. So anyway, you're going to be a little confused, but by the end of this, you're going to totally see what I have going on. So again, here are my 16, 13, 10, 7, and 4-inch pieces. These are basically going to develop a 44-inch wide knife block capable of holding all my blades. And when it's said and done, each one of these is going to be able to sit in by size. So my larger blades fitting in on the top, my smaller blades getting into some of my like 6-inch camp knife size down through like my 5-inch blades, and then my smaller guys are going to fit down here on the bottom, and they're all going to fit in their designated slots. And I think by the end of this, I'm hoping I can fit, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 knives. I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, probably 15, 30, 45, 60, maybe 75 blades can fit here on my wall, and it is going to be a unique, hopefully feature piece. So I got a lot of work to do. I'm rambling on, but let's get this thing underway. So as you saw, my workshop is an utter disaster, but I wanted to keep this project moving in order to clean this place up and get myself prepared to take on the building of that workshop. So anyway, I was lucky enough to find an associate at Home Depot who was able to rip these pieces down to size for me. And here in this case, I brought my little helper with me. What do you think, sweetie bug? We gonna make a project? Yeah. Is that cool? She's helping me keep this project moving. So anyway, found a guy at Home Depot to rip these pieces into size. Again, I already showed you my 16s, 13s, 10s, 7s, and 4s. What I need to do right now is space these out, and I'm thinking about the space that I need, and each one of these spaces needs to be wide enough to accommodate the thickness of the spine of the knife. So my larger blades tend to be, call it, say, for example, a 1/4 inch. Is really the thickest I have, so I want to go a little bit thicker than 1/4 inch. And then getting down through all these, I certainly have 1/4 inch blades in all of my, call it, camp knife, but like larger, like choppers. And then camp knives, definitely a 1/4 inch. Some of my a Schrade and a CFK 511 knife I know is 1/4 inch, so I definitely want to stay 1/4 inch spacing for the spines here. Then getting down into my 5-inch blades, I could probably make it 1/4 inch and be safe, but I know I'm going to have, call it, like a 3/16, and then maybe down to 1/8 of an inch, and then down into these smaller ones, 3/16, down to 1/8 of an inch. So anyway, I'm working on my spacing. I have a concept I'm going to try, and hopefully it's going to work out pretty good for me. So here what I've done is I've added these, they're kind of like dowels actually. What these are is basically little pieces of, they're like strips that go in hardwood flooring. Goes in basically the groove section of hardwood flooring if you want to like reverse direction on tongue and groove flooring. And what I've done is actually shimmed them up with these tiny little washers. So if you can see that little washer, basically these fit underneath. And then what that does is gives me almost the perfect thickness for a 1/4 inch blade. So here I have my Ontario SP53. So this is my sort of demo model here, and this is a 1/4 inch thick spine. And if you see there, it gives me just the perfect relief so that these blades will fit nice and snug in the slot, but yet have enough room to fit in there. And then the handles will hopefully, mostly, for the most part, sit flush on the top here. And now, obviously, all handle designs are different, and some of them are probably going to rock around on me, but I'll address that when it comes. So the next thing I need to do is put this piece on here and fasten it all up. Now the way I did this basically was just had little brad nails, and I've been shooting them through the holes in the washers, and luckily I've hit them all so far. So it looks like the spacing is going to be pretty nice, and I have 5 ribs that's going to support the second piece here. So I'm going to get the second piece installed, and then at that point kind of see where I'm at. Alright, so now at this point I've gotten the 2 halves together, so you see the 2 halves. And then inside there, the dowels that I had installed with the washers. And I just put some extra pieces on the back here and found my studs. And basically at this point, I am supporting this entire unit up on the wall. So you'll see this is the first section. And again, spaced for a 1/4 inch blade stock. And so that blade will fit in there nicely. And hopefully a whole bunch of blades will go across here, all capable of being a 1/4 inch. And then let's see here, if I take one that's an 1/8 inch, I'm sorry, this is actually a 3/16, that sits in there pretty nice too. So I think that spacing is going to work well. And let's say something with slightly different handle shape. You can see some of them are going to want to rock and tip. So I may need to devise a way to hold them straight. Now the dowels will do that. So if I have to install little pieces of dowel here and there to support these things, I can certainly do so. But I'll do that at the very end once I know how this is going to work. Alright, so at this point, I have everything pretty well fabricated. This took a while, probably about 3 hours. But you'll see I have the entire thing pretty much rough fabricated, and it didn't go perfect, but it went pretty well. And I'll show you some of the details. So now that you see it, you'll notice that I staggered basically every other tier in terms of those supports so that I can have blades that are kind of consistently even throughout this entire thing. If all of these were in a line, then I'd have a gap in my handles, and I wanted to have a little bit of overlap, so this looks like a nice big dense block. So all in all, I have just shy of 4 feet wide. So if you think about it, at 5 tiers, I have basically the equivalent of 20 linear feet of storage here, which is pretty ridiculous. And again, each one of these is certainly wide enough to accommodate a 1/4-inch blade stock nicely. And yeah, it's pretty sweet. I mean, I'm really happy with how this has come out so far, but I still have a bunch of work to do. I need to sand and round all the corners and touch up all these edges and get them kind of rounded off, and then really clean this whole thing up. You'll see, I mean, I have a couple spots where these dowels were a little bit long, so I got to trim that and sand it down and round all these edges again, and then I'm going to paint it. And then once I get it up into place, you see I had some holes pre-drilled for the mounts, so I'll get that up into place after I sand it and paint it. And then I'm thinking of where I have trim, I will likely trim this in some way, shape, or form around the edges. And then the other thing I need to do too is box in the end here. So I have to basically cut myself. I have some Luan, like 1/8 inch Luan that I'm going to use, and make a template and then cut it out and glue it or brad nail it in this way, so that'll be a nice finished edge, and then paint it as well. So I have a little bit of finished work to do here, but I am definitely getting close. So a little bit of sanding, and I think I'm going to test mount this and see how it goes. I just finished sanding this up and blowing off all the dust, and it looks pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but I've done pretty well. I rounded all the corners and smoothed everything out and gave it a real nice finish and blew out all the dust. And now here you'll see the end is really nice and flush and even, and prepared at this point for me to put my sort of end piece on. But I want to paint it first, and I was looking around and I just happened to see that I do have some spare paint and a decent medium gray. So I wasn't originally thinking gray, but I have the paint, and it would be a nice opportunity just to get this coated and kind of move on. So anyway, I am just going to paint this real quick, give it a nice solid coat, let it dry overnight, and then that leaves me tomorrow where I can actually mount this up and probably start putting some blades in it. Voila! So not 100% finished, but that is damn sweet. What a feature, an excellent addition to my gear wall. Just continuing to add on and refine my system. So again, just with all my gear nicely laid out, and now getting into my tools and now my blades. This is going to hold a huge amount of blades. Very nice and organized and displayed, and I've actually now even increased my overall tabletop. So that is excellent. Now again, a couple final details, but I'll do that off camera. I need to get myself that final piece, which should go roughly flush here to the edge of this, and trim that out, and I'll probably paint it white, I'm thinking, so it'll match the trim. So I'll paint it that same exact color, and that'll finish that off just beautifully. So Now there's really, at this point, only one more thing to do. Let's fill this thing up. And voila. So, I have my blades in here, and you'll see I have a ton of remaining space. So this is, I think it's 52 blades, and these are the fixed blades that I own. And then I have enough room for, I don't know, what would you say? Maybe another 70-ish, 75? So, not that I need an excuse to go buying more blades. That's not what my intention was. I just wanted a cool place to store them, and I thought that would be pretty neat, and that's working pretty well. Now, there are a couple funny things here that I need to address, and you can see it like on a blade like this, for example. It has an awkward handle shape that causes it to fall over. It was also the case with some of these, and what I did was I used these little dowels here to kind of space them out, and it really did work. So what I'm thinking is I could get these into a configuration that I'm happy with and get them laid out the way I like them and call it maybe almost like their permanent home. And then my theory is that I could get some real thin weather stripping actually and put it in there, and it has an adhesive backing, and so I think I'm pretty crafty in my ability to get things sort of laid out and in there. So what I'll do is I'll lay this out, and then my last step is I'm going to cut some small strips. I'm going to buy some very specific weather stripping that will fit these spaces, and then get the blades permanently in their home. But this is my project in a completion. I am very happy with it. I think it looks great, and at this point, when I'm ready to grab my BK9, whoosh, here you go. So there you go, just right there, and I come home, and it's got its little slot there, and it slides back in. And I mean, I'm in a little bit of conflict up here with the shovels. You know, I know that it's going to be a little bit of a pain to pull these out, but that's okay. You know, if I need to move these around, I can. You know, I'll rework all this at some point, but that's pretty much what I was looking to accomplish. And at this point, I'm starting to really get all my tools put together here. So, very exciting. I think this was a unique project. I've never seen anybody else put anything like this together. It seems to be working pretty nice. A little more to tweak out here, and then, you know, trim it up all the way like I had said I want to do, but I think that's going to be it for today. So anyway, guys, I hope you like what you saw, and you know, I think this is something that if you're interested in, you could certainly try to put it together. If you're looking for any help or suggestions, I can coach you through some of this. I did not show 100% of the details. I just kind of showed you the theory to keep this moving so I could get it done. Just for the reference, it took me essentially 3 days in total. 1, to go pick up my stock. 2, to put all of this together and then sand it and paint it. And then 3, to mount it. So 3 days total duration of time, but in terms of how many hours it took me to make it, ultimately I'm looking at probably 3 hours from the time I started if I worked continuously to the time it ended, minus the drying time for the paint. So anyway, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.